Hey Biscuits, welcome back to the Wholesome Feed. If you're new here, hey, I'm Rose Kelly. I am a romance author and content creator here on YouTube, Patreon, OnlyFans, and I love having you come along to our Wholesome Feed community on here. It's a really fun place. I do a lot of great lifestyle topics on here. My second channel on YouTube, I do a lot of homemaker tips and lifestyle tips over there. And then on my Patreon, we do all wonderful self-care. It's so playful, it's so fun. You should totally click on over there and come say hi on Patreon. But today, I want to talk about something that I have really spent the last couple years thinking about and researching and living through and trying to figure out what works best. So the pros and cons of a digital nomad lifestyle for families, right? There's a lot of digital nomad channels that are just about singles or couples, and there isn't a lot about people with young kids, right? That's really what I'm looking for information on. So I have really thought about, my job is mainly location independent. I've really tried to experiment and play and see like what parts of the digital nomad lifestyle would work for my family, right? If I were just on my own, I'd be my digital vagabond going around traveling, seeing all the sites. But I have a 1.5-year-old, I have a almost 8-year-old, and they need certain things, and my family life needs certain dynamics that are a little bit different, so it's different considerations. So I actually wrote down my pros and cons that I think are some of the big ones that we've experienced and has kind of made us, I'm going to talk about this in other videos too, kind of our progress through figuring out digital nomadhood. We're kind of at a transition point now where we've spent several years, really I would say maybe the last 4 to 5 years, we've really been playing with digital nomad life, and COVID kind of interrupted parts of that. But I've really been doing a lot of research and figuring out, as an American, where can I go, where can we live, and what lifestyles do we want, right? Because digital nomad is about finding a lifestyle that works for you, and that's unique if you have young children. So Biscuits, should I start out with the pros or the cons? I'm going to start with the pros. Excuse me if I look at my screen. If you are not new to my channel, you know I have the memory of a goldfish. And so I have to check these things. Okay, so I'm going to start with the pros. First one I wrote down is that it expands your perspective. There's something about not having the knowledge of where you're going to be in 6 months necessarily, of seeing all these new places, meeting new people, of really shifting your comfort levels that can expand your perspective in ways that nothing else does. I remember a couple years ago, we spent a month in London, and my son still talks about that experience and the things he experienced and learned, and even his young age, it really made a big impact on him. And I can see that with kids, it really does expand your perspective. And that's equally true even for adults. I know we think of travel as like different experience for kids and adults, and that's true, but there's something about being a nomad that just makes you view the world a little bit differently. Okay, so this kind of goes in line with that. So if you decide to be a digital nomad, and that might be like a van life on the road, you might decide to be a international digital nomad, you might decide, there's so many different levels of where that can take, but the amount of experiences and history and emotional growth that you can offer your family, your young kids, is incredible. Travel with kids has its own peculiarities. Let's be honest, it can be pure hell sometimes. It just can be. You ever fly with tiny young children and, sorry Biscuits, my camera decided to stop functioning. But there's really all these ways travel with children could go bad, right? It just can be. But when it goes well, it's just an amazing chance to experience things and see a historical standpoint. Our favorite spots are to go around places in Europe. Some people really like East Asia. Some people like South America or Central America. I'm a big fan that if you're going to digital nomad, I think Europe is kind of the fun area to do that in. For our family personally, we have a lot of heritage there. My mother was born in Germany, so we just have a lot of emotional ties there, if not actual real world ties, which if we had real ties would make immigrating so much easier. But currently we only get to do tourist visas. Wait, I'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so this is one to think about. A real pro can be a lower cost of living. So I live in Western Washington, and holy Jesus, is the cost of living high here. I mean, it is so expensive in Western Washington. I can't tell you, it makes my eyes water sometimes. And I'm like, what if we just van life it? It would be so much cheaper. It's so expensive. So think about, one of the pros is it can actually cost you less to be a digital nomad than to stay in one spot. Surprisingly, I know that's counterintuitive, but once you start traveling for extended periods of time, sometimes it can save you money. Oh, okay, I love this one. This is what I wrote down. Another pro is that the digital nomad lifestyle can be amazing for creativity. If you're in a creative field, or even if you are in a more technical field but you need inspiration, there is something about being in new places, seeing new views, going to amazing museums, seeing amazing countrysides, being places that you aren't normally at, that is so stimulating for creativity. I really like that aspect of digital nomad life, is I feel a little bit more alive and in the moment because I'm experiencing all these new things. And it's really easy to kind of just get bogged down in the mundane when you aren't being a digital nomad. Okay, this takes us to dramatic music. The cons of being a digital nomad. That was a really good face right there. Yeah, it's like screen grab that. She got hit by a train. Okay, so these are particularly cons to being a digital nomad with a young family. If you have teenagers or no kids, totally different perspective, right? But what I love to talk about is my life experience, and my life experience includes a lot of mom life, because you know what? That's just the season of my life that I'm in. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I like to be really honest about what that means for digital nomadhood. Okay, so it can really lack a routine. And that's true of whether you're on the road, you're doing national travel, international travel, you're doing a boat, whatever that might look like to you to be a digital nomad, it can lack routine. Now, when we travel, I really try to stick to our home routines, nap times, feeding times, all of that. But you're dealing with time differences a lot of time. You're dealing with being maybe more busy on some days because you want to go see sites or you want to go do something in particular. So it can be really disruptive. I have a son on the spectrum, and he really thrives in routine, and when that routine and downtime gets taken away from him, it does not go well. So routines in our family, which is so funny because I'm not a routine person per se, are really important, and that can be one of the bad sides to it. School gets a lot more complicated. Let's be totally honest about this. There's so many different ways to school. We have been doing homeschool for the last 2 years. We're trying mainstream school for my son to see how that goes, because homeschool just didn't seem to totally fit his personality. We're trying to find the right balance there. But man, school gets a lot more complicated when you're going to be away for a month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, constantly, right? So you really have to look at it and go, can you unschool? Can you homeschool? Can you online school? Can you charter? Can you get a public school to work with you? What's your digital nomad footprint look like for routine? And how do you then add in an education for your kids? Even as young as for preschoolers, right? They still can do really well when they have some kind of education that you're giving them, somebody else's, however that works. But schooling does inherently become just a lot more complicated when you have kids. Okay, this is a really honest one, but travel days can be really rough. When we've RV'd for extended periods of time, those travel days, that can be a lot of time in the car, especially if kids get car sick. Plane days can be really exhausting. Traveling, the days where you're doing intense travel for your digital nomad life can be really rough. And that's a hard one. And do you think that the pros of a digital nomad life outweigh the cons of a hard travel day? And that's kind of something each family has to ask. This is very true. No support system. So I live in Western Washington because I have family up here. I have relatives, I have 2 or 3 depending on who lives where. I have one that's being a Nomad traveler right now, but normally I'll have 3 plus all my in-laws of siblings up here. So I have a big support structure of my crazy fabulous giant family. I come from a big giant crazy family. If you've seen my big fat Greek wedding, think that, but like German and more stoic and grumpier. And that's my big giant crazy family. So you're giving that up when you're going to be a digital nomad, you know? And that's really something to think about. Do you want your kids to be around their cousins all the time? Do you want to be around your relatives? Do you want that support structure? Or are you good forging it alone, either as a solo parent or as just a couple with your kids and really focusing on that family time? And that can be a tough one. That's been one of our big deciding factors in what we do is, you know, wanting to have family around. Okay, so you can really face culture shocks when you're traveling. We've been to places where I have gone, oh my God, why am I here? This is just such a shock to the system. We don't like this. What is going on? So it doesn't always go well. The culture shock sometimes can be really good and positive, and sometimes it's just too bothersome, and it really makes you want to retreat back home. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, I wrote this down twice so that I remember. You really need a mobile job to be a digital nomad. And I know you're thinking, oh, you know, I'll do this online phone job or something. I hear a lot of moms talk about that, but you really have to think, can you actually be a digital nomad with the job you have? And you'd be surprised the logistics you have to think about involved with that. I write my romance books. I write sci-fi reverse harem. You can go look up on Amazon Man Her Station. That's one of my novels. It's a really popular one. I also write some paranormal romance that we've turned into a streaming series on OnlyFans. Which Way to Romance. That's Rose Kelly PPV on there. If you want to go check those out, those are both, for me, very mobile ways to be able to be a digital nomad. But I really had to look up my work and think, is this really something I can do traveling and being a nomad? And that's, sometimes we think we have more of a loosely scheduled job than maybe we do. So really consider that. Just, you know, give it some thought. Okay, biscuits. I have talked for a very long time because I love this topic. I'm going to keep talking about it because it's something that I have put so much time and effort into, and really trying to figure out what is going to work for our family over the next several years. You know, where are we at? What season in life are we dealing with that is going to make us all the happiest? Which is, you know, what your goal with the digital nomad life is. What's going to make you happy? What kind of freedom does your family crave? I will see you over on Instagram. I'll see you over on my Patreon. See you in the next video.